Hi everyone, I'm Leanne and welcome to my April TBR. So at the start of every month, I pick out 5 prompts from my TBR jar or my TBR sugar bowl. I pick out 5 prompts from that and then I go to my bookshelves. The majority of my books are here and then I have a few in my bedroom as well, but the majority of my TBR is here. I go to my shelves and I pick out a book for each prompt. Now there are a couple of books from previous months that I've fallen behind with slightly. So from my January TBR, I still need to finish By the Way, which was a non-fiction book, and I think because it was non-fiction, I felt like I was able to kind of dip in and out of it a bit. And then for my February TBR, I still need to read Home by Toni Morrison. It's quite a short one, so I should be able to do that. And then also The Slowest Burn. I'm kind of on the fence about DNFing The Slowest Burn. I started it towards the end of February and there were a couple of things about it that bothered me, so I put it down and then we got into the full swing of reading for the Irish Readathon when March hit. But I am going to try and make sure I get to those books or decide whether I'm finishing them one way or another in April. And then additionally, I'm going to pick out 5 prompts for April. Just give it a little stir. Okay, so the first prompt is double the next prompt. Okay, so the thinking behind this is I need to find 2 books that fit the next prompt I pick out. So that's risky business depending on what I pick out. Okay, so the prompt I need to find 2 books for. Oh, okay, this feels like it should be manageable. So it's foil on the cover. I mean, instantly I'm thinking like children's books, like middle grade, typically has a lot of foil used on the cover to make it look kind of glitzy and magical. But I'm sure there's quite a lot of books on my shelf that have foil on the cover. So finding 2 should be fine. Okay, so next prompt is third shelf. So every single month I've picked out one of these like particular shelf prompts, which I mean, they're really easy to find a book for because you literally just go to that shelf. But I'm surprised I've been picking one of those out every single month. Next up, I've just written the word gay with lots of Y's. So I think that's a fun way of saying a queer book. Okay, and final prompt, mythological creature. Okay, I feel like I need to think about these ones carefully because I think one of the challenges I have when pulling together this list of 5 books is I want different kinds of books. Like I don't want to have books like all from the same genre. And I am actually planning on doing a lot of work reading in February. So there will be a lot of like children's books in that. So I don't necessarily want to be picking loads of children's books for these prompts, but I feel like some of them really lend themselves to children's books. And I never include any of my workbooks in this TBR. Oh, what I have just realized is I recently rearranged my bookshelves. So it used to be on this shelf here, I had adult fiction, and then on the next shelf, I had my children's and young adult books, which included my workbooks. And then on the one at the end is like hardback adult fiction, and it was annoying me that the adult fiction was being separated, so that's why I rearranged them. So previously when I've done the prompts that are like a book from a particular shelf, they've always been from my adult shelves, whereas now the third shelf on like this first bookcase is part of the children's and YA section. So I am definitely going to be picking one of those out. Maybe let's start with that one. Let's start with picking a book from the third shelf because it should be quite straightforward. I mean, I guess in theory, it could be like any of the third shelves on any of the bookcases, but like, I know what I meant, and I meant 1, 2, 3. Okay, that was so easy. I mean, there were lots of books on that shelf that I really want to read soon and books that have come onto my shelves recently. But the one I've gone for is The Last Bookstore on Earth by Lily Braun Arnold. So this is a proof copy. It came out in January. And one of the things I really wanted to do this year was try and like read the proofs I have in a timely manner. And I've clearly not done that with this book, despite me dying to read this book. This is like a young adult post-apocalyptic book that is set in an old bookstore. And I think it's also a female-female romance. So if I was doubling up on prompts, this would also work for the gay prompt, but I'm not doing that. Okay, next I'm going to try and find a book with a mythological creature. And I am really going to try and avoid the children's and young adult shelves. I want to find something for my adult shelves, but I'm not a big fantasy reader, so that might be tricky. Okay, so I'm kind of choosing between two. So I have The Baby Dragon Cafe, which is a romance book set in a cafe, and there's also dragons. But then I also have Heroes and Villains, Poems About Legends, and this is collected poetry from lots of different poets, collected by Anna Sampson and with illustrations from Chris Riddell. So either of these would work. I feel like I'm gonna go with this one because it's nice to have some poetry in the mix, and also I want to leave myself free to potentially choose a romance book for one of the other prompts. So I'm gonna put this back, and then this is on the TBR. We're gonna go for the gay prompt next. I'm gonna have a quick scan of these shelves for like a female romance. But I think what I'm more likely to end up doing is going into my bedroom where my Afterlight books are, because immediately I'm like, I know this female romance is there. Okay, yes, I'm gonna go grab one from in there. I've brought options. So I was originally thinking of female romance, and I have Hot Summer by Elle Everhart, but I can't read this in April. Like, I need to wait for summer to read this, right? So my other option is The Prospects by Katie Hoffman, which is a male romance, and I think it has trans representation as well. It's a sports romance, it's baseball. I think I'm gonna wait for the summer to read this one, and I'm gonna put this one on the TBR for April. Okay, to finish up, I need 2 books that have foil on the cover. Like, in theory, this should be easy, but it's not the type of thing you can necessarily tell from like just looking at the spines. And as I said, I'm gonna try and avoid the kids and young adult shelf. So it might just take me like a little bit of searching. Okay, I've got 2 picks and they're quite different. I feel like I've got a real eclectic mix of books across these 5. I was really struggling for a little while there. I guess maybe we've cut down on using foil so much, especially on paperbacks, because it's so expensive. So I had a lot more luck when I went over to the hardbacks. So I've picked She's Always Hungry by Eliza Clark. This is a collection of short stories that are like quite strange and gothic, I guess. I've never read any Eliza Clark before, so I'm very intrigued to see what I make of this, and it is covered in foil. And then I also have The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. This is the Fairy Loot edition, but I got it secondhand, and it has lots of foil on the cover, but also even on the end papers there's foil, and then when you look at it naked there's foil as well. So very extensive use of foil on this one. Okay, now that we've got our 5, let's sit down and have a chat about them. So I'm really pleased with this stack as a selection of books. I feel like we've got quite an interesting mix of genres there. So I've ended up with 2 queer love stories, one being an adult sports romance and one being like a young adult dystopia in a bookshop. And all of these 3 have, like, to differing degrees, like fantasy elements to them. I think this collection of short stories really pushes me out of my comfort zone. I think this is just going to be the most gorgeous book. I'm very pleased to have some poetry on the TBR, and I have read poetry collections that have been accompanied by Chris Riddell before, and it is honestly one of the most gorgeous reading experiences I've ever had. So I'm very keen to replicate that with reading this one. And then this one definitely carries on me wanting to read some more cozy fantasy. And while I really enjoyed cozy fantasy as a genre last year, it does still feel like it's slightly out of my comfort zone. We've got a lot of hardbacks, so a lot of this reading is going to be done at home, because I don't really take hardbacks with me like out and about. I don't take them on my commute. So this is probably the only one of them that I'm going to read like while commuting, while on the tube. Leave me a comment down below and let me know if you have read any of these books. If there are any of them that you think I'm particularly going to enjoy, let me know. I think this is maybe the most excited that I've been for one of these TBR jar pick videos. April is always, I think, quite an interesting reading month for me, because I've just come out of like finishing all of my reading for the Irish Readathon, and that means that typically in that month I have been reading a lot. So I've got like a lot of reading momentum. But also typically in March for the Irish Readathon, there's always a few books that I read in that month that are like new favorites. So I feel like I'm coming off the back of like a lot of quality reading as well. So all of that momentum, both in terms of quality and quantity, gives me a little burst for my April reading, but I'm also reading really different stuff from the month previous, so it feels like a bit of a novelty. Anyway, as I said, leave me a comment down below and let me know if you've read any of these books already, if you enjoyed them. And if you want to let me know you're here but you don't have anything in particular to say, leave me a baseball emoji in honor of the prospects being a baseball romance. That's it for me today. I hope you're well and I'll speak to you in my next video.